being willing to walk away from something that you love in order to pursue your dreams. Because as soon as I made that decision, suddenly the doors opened. I was in China teaching. I was in London filming. I had a Fulbright in Brazil. So I think taking that risk without a safety net, I needed to take that leap to become who I wanted to really become.
Hello and welcome to the Beautiful Work Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Krikorian. Each episode, we feature a special guest from all walks of life, and we ask them to explore the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the triumphs and trials of their chosen field. Writers, musicians, coaches, business owners, athletes, and everything in between. We peel back the curtain to hear their stories, to walk their paths, to find out how they breathe life into their beautiful work. Theresa Dudeck is a 2019 U.S. Fulbright Scholar, and she is an improvisation and applied improvisation scholar artist working in both academic and professional settings. She's considered one of the foremost teachers of Keith Johnstone's impro systems, and she has done so much with her work, and I was lucky to have her as a professor back in my master's program at Chapman, and so I'm excited to bring you her story. So without further ado, my interview with Theresa. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Hi, Dan.
Hi. Well, I am joined by Dr. Theresa Dudeck. Theresa, thanks so much for joining me this morning on Beautiful Work Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is fun for me because you were a professor of mine when I was a master's student at Chapman University getting my master's in leadership development, and one of my favorite classes I've ever taken was your class on improvisation, and it's been fun for us to keep in touch since you're now doing other things traveling around the world, which we'll get to, but it's great to have you back and talk about some improvisation today.
Yay. Well, you were one of my favorite students too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, I want to start by asking you about a quote of yours that's from your website and just letting you react to that quote, and that'll kind of maybe get us into our conversation about improvisation. Your quote is, "Every day I ask myself, what comes next? And the universe keeps making offers I can't resist. How very lucky I am to have a flexible, loving, multi-talented husband willing to journey with me to the ends of the earth. We live our lives as improvisers, so to speak, in the present, operating somewhere between structure and surprise in an ideal state of flow."
Wow, did I write that? Yes, it's true. Yeah, we've moved around a lot, and it's often because of my journey, the improvisation journey that has taken me around the world, and also opened my eyes to other possibilities of how I can use my PhD in theater and my expertise in improvisation. What comes next? I mean, what comes next for me is this. It's a game of Keith's. It's a narrative development game where the improviser asks, "What comes next? What comes next?" Right? Instead of thinking you have to rush to get somewhere in the future or be anywhere but the present, and really open your eyes to what is right there, what is right in front of you. Sometimes it's the most obvious choice. Often it's the most obvious choice that is the best choice. And this is what I teach improvisers, but it also becomes a mindset. I mean, the best improvisers I know sort of live that way. It's not it's not that they haven't put thought and consideration into their life, but it's also that they're open to ideas not anticipated. They're open to what the universe might give them. That I think there's a philosophy, a term in Asia that they talk about soft focus. That idea about you not forcing your ideas on the world, but letting ideas come to you, letting creativity come to you. And as a musician, I'm sure you understand this, right?
Sure.
So that's that idea of letting something else work through you, flowing through you, and being open to those ideas, even if they seem crazy at first, instead of shutting them down before they even have a chance to breathe or develop or partner with another idea that you might have. Or
Sure.
so it's a mindset, and it certainly has allowed me in my life, and with my husband Dale, who's a photographer and sort of for many years was a traveling spouse as I was getting my PhD, and that we just adjust. We can live in limbo. Okay, we travel together, and I think we're able to walk and find balance. We find home wherever we go because we know how to balance structure and surprise and better. And I think improvisers are really equipped to do that because we train in that. We do that on stage with high stakes situations in front of large audiences. And so doing that off stage is sort of second nature. I guess that answered.
That's a great answer. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. It's a beautiful quote. When I'm researching, going through all your work, and it really stuck out to me as a nice quote. So I figured I'd ask you about it right off the top, just to dive in right away.
I love that you quoted me. I'm always quoting Keith or someone else, so it's nice to hear someone quote me.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, let's dive in a little bit to what it is you teach, what impro is for people that are tuning in or listening to you for the first time, and maybe they don't have a whole lot of background in it. So I'll let you explain it, what it is you teach, and then we can dive further into it.
I should let you explain it. You're my student. See if it resonated.
It definitely did, which I'll get to later. But I don't know. I am not the scholar on this, so I'll let you take it.
So, well, I'm improvisation that I teach is really grounded in theater. It's rooted in theater. It's based on Keith Johnstone's impro system, which is a term that I've been using since I think 2005 to describe his oeuvre of work, right? His theories, his methods, his terminology, his pedagogy. And it's a system because it has all those components that, it's really important for me as an educator to not only give the students the experience of the exercise or the activity, but to also make sure they understand why the experience matters. Mm-hmm. So that's where theory plays in. And Keith Johnstone, pioneer of impro, based his work, all of his work, on theories outside of the theater. So in theories of behavioral science, of animal studies, of Asian philosophy, of human behavior, just watching human behavior. He's still alive. He's an avid reader, reads everything, science, right? I mean, he introduced me to physicist Richard Feynman, and so much of that work resonates with what I teach because it's about curiosity. It's about being present. It's about giving yourself the right to fail, understanding that failure is part of the process of learning. So all of that is part of improvisation. Impro and improv are both abbreviations for improvisation. There's really they're both the same thing. I think people falsely assume that impro means European style of improvisation based in Keith Johnstone's work as it came out of Royal Court Theater and Theater Machine, and improv is Chicago. And that's false because Second City uses Keith's status work. Keith was invited to teach there in the 70s by Del Close. So, and many people who are Johnstonians abbreviate improvisation improv. So I like using impro because it is a nod to Keith, and it's also, for me, it's more inclusive because
Okay.
I did this huge, being an academic, right? I did this huge survey of, I think, 30 different countries. I responded, improvisers from 30 different countries, and basically said, because of the way they say improvisation, the way they I can't say it, the way they break it into
Yeah.
syllables, it's that word, right?
Uh-huh.
um so I just use impro because I feel like it's more inclusive, because more countries abbreviate it, more improvisers in different countries abbreviate it impro.
Impro's
And it's
easier to say for a podcast host too, rather than improvisation every time out.
improv, yeah, or improv. And improv is fine too. I just like impro.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like it separates the work of that I do from stand-up improv comedy,
Okay.
which is it. Certainly it feeds in. I just interviewed Joel McHale not too long ago
Mm-hmm.
um, for we'll talk about it. I'm sure the new docu-series we
Yeah.
launched, and he's a stand-up comedian and he's an actor and he's an improviser. So impro techniques and processes underpin everything he does, right? As most improvisers, it's kind of like the river that flows underneath everything we do,
Uh-huh. Okay.
on stage and off. Yeah.
Let me, I'll take you back. I remember when I took your class, one of the things that for me I loved about it and kind of was freeing going through the class. So I am a musician and I'm also a college basketball coach, and I really related to both of those things, both of those careers. I am on a stage, I'm in front of people, there's something going on, and there's high stakes, wins and losses, people in the crowd. And I really was drawn to being less rigid, or being able to, learn some of these techniques to take to being a basketball coach, or take to being on stage where you're getting ready to play in front of a bunch of people and somebody's guitar string snaps, or this sound doesn't, and what do? Or somebody yells something from the audience that's kind of funky on at the stage, and how do you react? And so I really enjoyed it because for me it was directly applicable to leadership with the college basketball and to music. So how about other folks, running a business or in any other careers? How does it translate? What are some of the skills that you can take from impro to those careers?
So yeah, I talk about this a lot, and it's application in the applied improvisation book that I co-edited, leading, leading, collaborating, and creating beyond the theater. So applied improvisation, that's the main title. But yeah, it's I do a lot of applied improvisation training now for change management, for innovation, for building teams, for communication, for problem solving, for just interpersonal skills training, for educators here at Portland State. I've done workshops using improvisation to get teachers to create an authentic, engaged classroom for co-constructed learning.
Mm-hmm.
For leadership, one of the things that improvisation I think is best at is really building the skills of listening, of being present in the moment, of attuning yourself to others, which I know we talked about in our class. Perspective taking, right? Also self-awareness, because as a leader, your employees are going to mirror what you do. They're going to follow the follower. They're going to, well, in a way, they're going to follow your behavioral cues, right? We have these things called mirror neurons, and we often follow what the leader does. If they come in a bad mood, it might put everybody in a bad mood. So Goleman talks about this in social intelligence, right? Relational intelligence, emotional intelligence, that we have to set an example. And so improvisation is about it teaches you to see behavior, to self-reflect, but also I feel most importantly, the way I teach impro and the way Keith teaches impro, it's about creating benevolent improvisers who are really interested in the other person, about inspiring others, empowering others. So, and also using the tools and resources that are in the room, right? Mm-hmm. Improvisation is not outside of the box thinking. It's inside the box thinking. It's about using the resources at hand, inspiring the people you work with, empowering them, paying attention to their needs, to their behaviors, their even subtextual cues, right? All of the tools that all of the games, the activities, exercises we play and use. Play is a big part of it too, right? Play is very powerful. I think Richard Feynman, there's a story about him when he was at Cornell. Again, I often think about Feynman because he liked to play. And when he was on the Manhattan Project, it was, building the atomic bomb that was so stressful. And he had just lost his wife to tuberculosis, I think, previously. And then he was given this position at Cornell. And the chair of the science department said, "We don't care if you succeed or fail. We just are happy you are here and we want you to do what you do." And so the culture has to support innovation, risk-taking. So at that moment in Feynman's life, he was so down on physics. He didn't want to do anything. He just didn't want to. So he just stopped trying to do his best. He stopped trying to succeed. And then he was in the mess hall one day, or the lunchroom, and he saw a plate being thrown, and the rotation and the wobbling of the plate caught his attention. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Oh, that's fun. I'm going to take that and go work out what that means, like the rotation to the wobble." And then he won a Nobel Prize, right? When he was given the right to just play and to do what he does instead of, "You must build an atomic bomb," right? Which,
sure.
Yeah. And I think that play can be really powerful.
It's interesting. I know Keith has a TED Talk out there where he talks about some of the things that you just mentioned. And one of the things I took from his TED Talk was about being average, right? Yes. And I think when someone thinks of improvisers, or they think of, two people on a stage, it's like this race to like who's the funniest and does the craziest thing and makes everybody laugh the loudest. But what he's saying and what you've taught is, no, you want to stay where you're listening to other people. You're not trying to one-up them too much. You're not trying to be the funniest guy. You're just being natural. And that was something that's interesting. I think most people think the opposite of in improv, of you got to be funny and loud and crazy.
Yeah, I think that whose line is it anyway is partially responsible for that reputation. And all of that is based in Keith's work, right? All those guys trained with Keith Johnstone. But when you look at, the way improvisation is finding itself in film and television and in long form, it's to talk about your world of basketball, right? Yeah. Your players are improvising, but yes, they are trained in the rules. They are trained every day. They practice, they repeat, they talk about what they're, right? I think that's where people get it wrong, that improvisers are just winging it. No, it's like a finely attuned basketball team that is really paying attention to the other players, to the moment. If they're anywhere other than the present moment, if they're in their head too much, they're going to miss where the narrative needs to go. They're going to miss the relationship that needs to be developed. They're not going to see the small leakage of behavior that's coming from their partner when they're uncomfortable, and adjust accordingly to that, right? They're not going to notice that because they're too in their head. They're too focused on self. And Whose Line Is It Anyway is great. I love that show. I love all of those improvisers are brilliant at what they do. TV, however, with its sound bites, right, and commercial breaks, is not the best platform, however, to develop characters and narrative and relationships the way that they need to develop in a longer form theater context.
Uh-huh.
But that's what most people are familiar with is, sketch
Yep.
comedy, which is sketched. It's not pure improvisation, and Whose Line isn't anyway, which is really about sound bites, and
Sure.
we only have this much time to do this, and those guys are brilliant. But I've heard them talk about how they also love getting back to the space where they can really develop a
Sure.
relationship with someone and a character and go on adventures together on stage, which is not when you're doing games. That's a more game format versus narrative format. Or yeah.
I think what I like too that you've done with your career, and you have this balance between the on-stage stuff that people love to watch and come and pay tickets for to see, but then also distilling the skills from it to where like, and like what I've talked about is though I might not, I might, who knows, get on an improv stage and try to do it in front of people. The skills that I learned, or the skills that you can take from the teachings, are applicable to whatever you do in your life, in your business, or your personal relationship. And so, I think maybe for some people out there going, well, I would never want to get on a stage. Well, the teachings, it doesn't matter. Whatever the skills you learn are one and the same to me. But what do you say to people that start to learn and they say, I'm just not good at this. I'm too afraid. I don't have the skills. I don't think like that. How do you try to break through that wall with people?
I think, well, like Keith, the first thing I do is I give them the right to fail. And now I've been using the term fail forward. But right away, the first day of class, and I teach here at Portland State now, and unlike when I taught at Chapman, I had mostly theater majors who, it's funny though, theater majors are often too much in their head and not in they think they have to be intelligent. And I just keep reminding them, just bring yourself, be obvious, because what's obvious is going to seem original to others because you're unique. I think that's really important. So first say you have the right to fail. We want you to fail, and applauding when they do fail. Keith says, screw up and stay happy. Right? Audiences love that. They don't want to see you depressed and crying and cussing as you walk off the stage, right? They were like, oh my God, I failed. That sucked. I am so sorry. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, right? And they take a failure bow. So that's the first thing, changing your attitude towards failure. And then slowly, Keith borrows from sort of the desensitization of phobias that they use in therapy, like introducing the fear-inducing elements in baby steps until eventually the fear drips away. It's not that the fear never comes back, but when suddenly you realize that ideas, for example, aren't precious, that you can kill bad ideas. So this whole notion that you have to say yes to every offer, that's not exactly true. It's a principle that points to a deeper philosophy of just be present and be a part of the process that's unfolding. But it doesn't mean that you have to say yes to every single offer. If a no moves the story forward in the way that the improvisers on stage and the audience who's engaged now in this, what we call the circle of probability that's unfolding, if a no moves it forward, great. And I've even, I think Michael Keegan recently did an interview about just that, about sometimes there are going to be improvisers who want to come in and they kill ideas by being too original, by thinking outside the box. Right? By dragging something else in from the outside that nobody on stage wants to do. In those moments, you're allowed to say, what? Come on. And somehow incorporate it into the scene to move the story forward the way that the majority of the improvisers in the audience want it to go. So I think,
Sure.
right to fail, be obvious, be average, be here now. We also do a lot of stuff in the beginning that's just about following your impulse, and as I always hear Keith in my own voice, but you are not responsible for what you dredge up from your subconscious. Right?
Uh-huh.
You have to absolve them of responsibility, and remind them as a teacher that you're there to keep them safe, right? So that they can digress to a more elevated state, right? They
Hmm.
can give them that opportunity. So pedagogy, and this is why I love teaching Improv for Leadership at Chapman and on my Fulbright down in Brazil, because the critical theories of like Paulo Freire, the critical pedagogies really play in. Keith is a master teacher, not only because of what he has created, but because of how he teaches. So I think that's where, when I see students that have come to me and they have all of this fear, you know, uh, paralyzing them,
Hmm.
I often find out that when they took improvisation before, it was about being fast and funny and the smartest person on the stage. There's a place for that. That's not the improvisation I teach.
Got it.
Mine is all about connection and communication and being present and bringing yourself to the work. And that's where we start. Yeah.
I'm curious. You've mentioned Keith a number of times now. Could you maybe talk a little bit about the relationship that you've been able to forge with him as far as writing books and
Yeah.
being one of the foremost scholars, and where that has led you? And then I know you have some work coming out about him, and so some time to talk about that too.
Yeah. Well, I wrote I have it right in front of me since
Perfect.
I wrote Keith Johnstone, a critical biography. This was a probably 4 or 5 year labor of love that took me around the world, to archives in London and Calgary, and followed Keith teaching in Sweden and London and all over. I interviewed, I think, upwards of 35, 40 people. Um, yeah, and Keith is still alive. This came out in 2013, so and he's still teaching. I think he was in Germany last year, and although he's slowed down a little, he's 87 now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so as I was working on this critical biography on him, he asked me to be his literary executor. So that means it's a lifelong custodianship of his literary archive, which I have placed at Stanford University. So his literary archive is at Stanford for people to go look at and read. And
It's great.
his book Impro has been, I think it came out in 1979, and it's been translated into up 15, 16, maybe more languages. And I think I just got a contract for the audio rights. They're going to make it into this book alone has changed the landscape of not only theater training, but uh, at Stanford, for example, Zimbardo, the famous psychology professor, uses Keith's status, or brought status into Stanford's social science program. Peter Coyote, the actor, uses impro in Zen Buddhism and in
Hmm.
training of Zen Buddhist priests. And so I'm his literary executor, I'm his biographer, and so we talk often, and I'm really about, perpetuating his legacy in a way that not only elevates theater sports, which is the competitive format that he created, which is fantastic,
Hmm.
and Whose Line Is It Anyway is loosely based on that, and other types of programs around the world. In Brazil, they have Etudo Improviso, which is based in Keith's work, and down there they call him the Pope of Impro, which I find fascinating.
That's great.
Um, yeah, but I also am really focused on perpetuating his early legacy at the Royal Court Theatre. He started out as a playwright, a director, a master teacher of actors who created these tools for actors. And And he was also one of the most radical playwrights of the day. And a lot of people forget that history. So that's been a goal of mine. And I'm co-directing with my sister, Alicia Robbins. She is now the director of photography on Grey's Anatomy.
Wow.
We have been working on a documentary on Keith for, I think, since the fall of 2017. And we have interviewed over 20 people, including Jonathan Pryce and playwright Mark Ravenhill and Joel McHale, which I mentioned earlier, and people from his early days, from the Theater Machine, which was Keith's early improvisation group, the first pure improvisation group in Europe that was performing improvisation when it was still illegal to do so.
Wow. Wow.
And what we've decided to do, since we are now in this time of isolation, Alicia and I said, we shouldn't sit on these interviews until we get everything we need for the documentary. So what we have recently done, about 4 weeks ago, we launched a docu-series on YouTube called On Keith, Artists Speak on Johnstone and Impro. And if you go to onkeith.com, it'll take you to the YouTube site. And we have already dropped 4 interviews, and we're going to be dropping another one this Friday. And then every 2 weeks we'll drop another one. So Jonathan Pryce, his interview is brilliant. And we have Deborah Francis White, who's a podcaster.
All right.
For The Guilty Feminist, which is huge in Europe and beyond. And she's talks about how Keith's work influenced her podcasting, her screenwriting, and just being a better human being. And I think the through line in all of these interviews, and I think the through line in my own history of working with Keith, is I have become a better human being.
Wow.
I am able to engage people on a deeper level and listen. I feel like I'm a really good listener, and also forgiving myself for, not being perfect. And that's hard for an academic scholar, to be okay with with failure.
Paulo Coelho, in his famous work, The Alchemist, wrote, "There's only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure." A few years back, while completing my master's degree, I decided to take a unique elective called Impro for Leadership. Having been a fan growing up of shows like Whose Line Is It Anyways, I couldn't wait to unearth the secrets of being as entertaining on a stage as a Ryan Stiles or a Wayne Brady. And yes, impro can in fact be quite funny, but the tools and skills that Theresa taught on those Monday and Wednesday evenings touched on something much deeper than a quick laugh on stage. It was a way of looking at ideas and situations, of being open to whatever comes, to looking fear and failure in the eye, shaking its hand, and asking, "What's next?" One of my favorite exercises was a warm-up game called Yes and, where we would learn how to accept an offer and then contribute to the scene or story. A great way to learn to accept new information, whatever it may be, and then moving the story forward. I find myself reflecting back on this exercise often in a variety of contexts. A tough day, or a great show, a bad loss, or a thrilling victory. Yes, and. Theresa has embodied her own teachings, consistently finding and taking on new challenges in her ever-evolving and expanding professional life, asking what comes next, pushing through the boundaries in fear of the unknown. As Keith Johnstone said, There are people who prefer to say yes, and there are people who prefer to say no. Those who say yes are rewarded by the adventures they have. I want to see, I think it might be kind of fun if we can try to show some folks maybe some of your teachings live with me.
Okay.
And see if I can, I can be the dummy person for someone that's out there that's afraid and to see what it looks like. But maybe if you talked about some stuff that you do online, but is there anything that maybe we could do together where people can get a sense of a little bit of the teachings?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it to you then to decide what we should do, and then you can lead me through it, and we can just try it for a minute or two here.
So I know I taught this to you at in our leadership class.
Yes, I just got nervous. See, like everything, I just got like, oh no. Okay,
you should know better.
I know better, but I'm still...
be obvious.
Good.
I usually, and I'm going to have to play with you, where I usually get to just be the teacher and the side coach and facilitate, right? Now I have to play, so now the pressure's on me too. But again, this is so good for me because if I keep on mantra-ing that be average, don't do your best, right? Please, I hear Keith's voice and just pay attention to what's happening, or, pay attention to my partner, so I'm going to pay attention to you.
Okay.
Right. So this is and because we're filming this right now, I'll do this, and then we'll do another one that if it's just if you want to just cut it in for the podcast only, that will work.
Sure. Okay.
So blind offers justify the gesture is one of Keith's basic. It's a tool that he has a basic like exercise to work it. And then you apply that technique in scenes, longer narratives, and so forth.
Okay.
So basically, you have two players. You have A and B, and I would coach you, for example, to throw out a physical gesture, an abstract physical gesture, without any intention of meaning anything, and then to just hold it for a second and let your partner look at that gesture. Right. So that's what we would do first. For this interview purpose, let's say we've already done that, right? So basically, I've looked at you throughout this abstract gesture. I take it in. I let it resonate. I put you back to neutral. Then I throw out a gesture. You watch me, right? And then we go to part B. The second part of this exercise is which you do the same thing. You throw out an abstract gesture. Again, your job is to throw out a blind offer, right? Which is different from a controlling offer. A blind offer is abstract enough where it allows your partner to make meaning of it. So basically, you're relinquishing some control. You're basically saying, I'm throwing this out to inspire you, to unleash your imagination. I'm not going to worry about controlling the scene. I'm going to let you decide where you want the scene to go. And then you yes and their impulse. And it's a back and forth building on each other's offers, right? But in the beginning, it's really benevolent because you're saying, I'm going to just throw out this crazy offer and see where this goes. But I trust my team. I mean, this is good for leaders too, right? Mm-hmm. To not always come in with the answers, to figure out, to use the knowledge in the room, and to not sort of structure it so you're determining the way you want it to go. But to throw something abstract out there, I have these ideas that are percolating, but I haven't like put them into any solid form yet. So I'm just gonna throw out something abstract to all of you managers to see what ideas you generate, and then that might change my mind about something. Okay. Right? So it's a great leadership tool too. Okay. So with Zoom, it's a little hard to be physical.
Sure.
So I've adapted this exercise in a different way. So basically, I'm going to, instead of giving you a abstract gesture, I'm going to give you an abstract object.
Okay.
And as soon as you see the object, I want you to start a scene. And in the playing of the scene, we should create a relationship. Who are we to each other, right?
Okay.
And why? But you can also anything that this object inspires is right.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready for the object?
I'm ready for the object, and I'm just going to react and say something.
And start a scene.
Start a scene. Okay.
Yeah, based on this.
And when you say start a scene, just so I know,
You're going to be a character in the scene relating to the object I'm showing you.
Okay.
And I'm that other character that's showing you this object. The story is going to be about this object, though.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Smith, my next door neighbor. I have plenty of onions already for my salad, but I appreciate the offer.
Oh, dear. Well, I saw this onion and I thought about you, Bob, because, it kind of reminded me of you a bit. And I know it's been hard with your food delivery service during this time of isolation, that they haven't been giving you onions in your box. So you got some onions this week, huh? Is that what you're saying, Bob?
Well, Mrs. Smith, I am actually our other next door neighbor, Jeffrey, dropped off a whole box yesterday. And so I think that, Mrs. Smith.
You like Jeffrey's onions better than mine? My heart is broken.
Mrs. Smith, is this about the onions or is this about something else?
It does go deeper. It's just that I thought I was your best neighbor friend. And you didn't take my onions last week, and you're not taking them this week, and now you're taking Jeffrey's onions. And I just feel that I'm going to have to move because I can't live like this.
Mrs. Smith, let me explain.
Okay.
Jeffrey's onions, though yours are nice and
beautiful.
Tasty, Jeffrey's onions don't make me cry as much when I cut them.
Oh.
And I just am through crying when I cut onions.
Okay. I can accept that. This is a difficult time for all of us, and maybe after we come out of this isolation, you'll try my onions again.
I would be happy to try your onions post-isolation.
Meanwhile, I'm making you a wonderful vegetable soup.
Now that I'm excited for.
Okay, good. Great. Yes.
Okay.
So we built a whole story about being neighbors, and just because I gave you this is abstract, right? It's an onion, but
yep.
You made sense of it. You took it. You.
Yes.
I can't accept your onions, Mrs. Smith. Yeah. So that's blind offers using objects. You can start a blind offer with an emotional a sigh or by entering the space as if something happened just before. So do you want to try one?
Yes, let's try. So I would
offer
an
object.
Yes. Let me see.
Okay,
here.
I might have to put on my glasses to see this.
Okay.
This is fun.
Okay. Let me just grab something. Okay. Are you ready? I got something.
Okay. Oh dear. Oh my gosh, Jeff. That's the little keyboard that you played as a baby. Where did you find that?
Mom, thanks. Yes, I was going through some old boxes in the garage, and I found from early 2000s, and I just pulled it out and started playing.
I remember your little tiny fingers hitting the keys, and the piano. That little kid looked so big next to you because you were teeny. You were a teeny baby.
I was just a small baby. Yes.
You were a small baby. Yeah. But but with a big heart. And what talent. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you found that. I know
Well,
you want to play something for me, yes?
I wish I could, but unfortunately, it has to be plugged in, and
Oh,
so what I
I
will do
forgot
though
about
is
that.
I'm decided to record some music with it that I'll send you, and
Oh, honey.
with my baby piano.
Oh, honey. Oh, my God. That would just make me and your father so happy. I just,
How is Dad?
oh, he's outside drinking a beer. It's past noon. I mean, that's what he does. You
He made
know,
it. He
uh,
made it to noon. That's good. Yes.
yeah, looking at his garden growing but he gets on the piano, he plays, he's practicing, he's keeping up his, musical tools because that's the connection he has with you.
Oh, I appreciate. Well, tell Dad hello for me, and that if he's making any onions, I could use some.
Oh, nice. I think he is growing some
It's
some
growing.
green onions and some little shallots. So yes, we'll ship them right over.
Thank you.
Nice reincorporation there of the onions. That's what we call reincorporation, bringing back a previously shelved offer or something that was in a previous scene, and the audience loves that when you reincorporate something like that.
Yes. Well, so this is like really interesting because obviously we're online on Zoom.
Yeah.
We're not getting quite like in class. You get the physical feel from the
Yes.
room,
Mhm.
but what I noticed right away is like there's, and even going back to our classes, getting over the pressure to like make everything maybe funny or like
Yeah.
um, make people laugh, but also just time just advance the story or just set something up for maybe someone else can finish a punchline or make it funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these Zoom classrooms are actually, even though being in person is one, that you can't replace that and that human connection. But Zoom is slower,
Right.
and you often have to slow things down and just take your time. And what I've noticed with my students is that are now my Impro 2 class. We had our Impro 1 class online. I mean, in person in the winter, and now we're in Zoom. Is that they're taking their time, that they're relaxed in their home. There's a kind of more authentic, genuine connection happening, and also
Hmm.
there's a need. I mean, this our our two meetings each week are giving. It's almost anxiety release, right? Where we're
Sure.
just getting to be in this space, in this moment with other people, connecting, playing scenes, telling stories. Yeah, I this format has some benefits,
That's
right?
great. well,
Um, I
well,
still miss,
for sure, for sure.
and
Well,
we'll get back to that hopefully.
thank you for letting me be the guinea pig. Maybe people can see in a little bit of some of the stuff. Do you have anything else, or is
Well,
that the?
I also want to add before we leave blind offers
Yes.
that a couple of the theories that underpin that I've
Uh-huh.
mentioned: unleashing your partner's imagination, um, not controlling the situation, so relinquishing some control, which is about being vulnerable, right? That's often hard for people to do, to not control where the story is going to go.
Sure.
Yes anding your partner's ideas. And also there's another component of that game, that if an idea, like if you threw out a blind offer to me and it didn't inspire me or didn't unlock something in me, or I started going into my thinking intellect for a clever response, then Keith has put the rule in the game that instead of going there into your thinking intellect or trying to come up with something better, you just simply put your partner back to neutral, and then they thank you for at least acknowledging that they made an offer. So that's the right to say no to an offer if either it doesn't inspire you or you're getting too heady about it, right?
So like in the instance, if I were to show you the keyboard and it just didn't spark anything,
Yeah.
you would just say, "Thanks so much for showing me the keyboard. It's lovely. What else is in the room?" Or
Yeah, show me something else. Give me
yeah.
another offer. Exactly. But right away, I saw the little keyboard, and I thought about little hands. If
Uh-huh.
the onion didn't inspire you, you could have said, oh God, I'm getting into my thinking intellect too much.
Sure.
Give me something else. And you
Uh-huh.
just do that over and over. It also trains improvisers and students not to treat ideas as precious. We swim in an ocean of ideas, right? So just generate idea after idea until you find something that enthuses your partner. That's what's important. If it enthuses
Yep.
your partner, it can go into beautiful directions. But if you're trying to force the right idea, or if you're trying to show your partner that you never get into your intellect and you always have impulses, right? So it's training improvisers to realize how often we censor our impulses as
Okay.
well. So that's a real important part of the exercise.
Sure. That was
Yeah.
great.
So the other exercise is not a Keith game, but I want to
Uh-huh.
do it because, do you want to do another one?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. I use this a lot with my corporate training work.
Okay.
So especially if a company is dealing with uncertainty or change, or I've done one-on-one coachings with CEOs and leaders who want to respond better to curveballs when they're thrown at them. And so this is an exercise called Swedish Story. I don't know why it's called Swedish Story,
Okay.
but it's in the book I co-edited. So if anybody's interested, there's workbooks, and it talks about how to facilitate it, how to reflect on it, how to debrief it, which debrief is really important and I think applied AI, not artificial intelligence, like I think you had an economist on that talked about AI.
Yes.
Yeah. So AI for us is applied improvisation, although I have to say that Google and some other companies have gotten together and they're doing improbotics now. And I have a big symposium organization that I started at Chapman, actually, the Global Improvisation Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And we had those guys at our last symposium last spring in London bring their little robots. And they had the robots work with improvisers to help train the robots to be more emotional, to be more sensory, to be more human.
My wife might say that about me.
No, I can't believe that. So anyway, Swedish Story.
Yeah.
Swedish Story is about responding. It trains you to respond to curveballs. So it builds these skills with agility. It's also about reframing interruptions that you might get as offers, as gifts. So as you were saying, when you lose a game, right? Or when somebody throws you a ball, I don't know. I don't know basketball lingo. Right?
Yes.
Okay, that's an offer. How do I use that now as I move forward instead of wallowing in that moment and letting it throw you off your game?
Okay.
So what we're going to do is come up with a title of an imagined story that's never been told before. So do you have a possible title for a story that's never been told before?
Can I use a song title of mine that is unreleased?
Yeah, sure.
The Quarantine Blues.
The Quarantine Blues. I love it. It has color. It has isolation aspects. I love it. Okay. So basically, since that's your title, I'm going to let you tell the story of the Quarantine Blues. And every now and then, are you okay with being the storyteller?
Okay. Yeah. Let's give it a shot.
So every now and then, and you're an educator and you're a basketball coach, so you get curveballs thrown and real balls thrown at you all the time.
Sure. Yes.
That reminds me of an exercise we did that you told me, oh, this is in class. You said, this is just like being on the court with my players. We'll have to go back to that. So as you start the story, every now and then, about every 15 seconds or 10, 15 seconds, I'm going to throw in a random word that has nothing to do with quarantine or the blues.
Okay.
Nothing to do with what you're talking about. And you have to incorporate my word into the story without any pause. I mean, you don't have to incorporate right away. You can move into, you just have to find a way without letting it throw you, incorporate that word into your story.
Okay, that word.
And yeah.
Okay.
And then once you've incorporated that word, I will throw you another word.
Okay.
All right. And they're going to be random, abstract offers, right? That you have to,
And you're gonna tell me to pause, or you're just gonna
no, I'm just going to say,
say?
I'm going to say it and then you hear it and you just keep going.
Okay.
All right.
Can't wait. I'm ready. So, you let me know when to start, and I'm just gonna start a story on the quarantine blues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Begin.
Okay. It was early in the morning, 8 a.m. to be exact, a sunny Saturday afternoon, and Johnny got up and went to the fridge and pulled out milk, got the box of cereal, poured the cereal into the bowl, and started to think about the day ahead. What's he gonna do? Where will he go? Who will he see? And a thought popped into his brain. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck in this house. We're in the middle of a pandemic. What should I do? How should I enjoy my day? How should I talk to my friends and to my family?
Canoe.
So he thought of an idea. I'm gonna get into my canoe and I'm gonna go and row out on the water right by my house and yell to my neighbors and to my friends from the canoe in the water, asking them how their day is, seeing how they are, and with the social distancing in place, I can interact with all of my neighbors from the canoe in the water.
Dinosaur.
As he went out on the canoe, he noticed in one of his neighbor's front yards a large, lifelike dinosaur in the backyard, and he yelled to his neighbor, Hey Bob, what's up with the dinosaur in the front yard?" Bob came out in his long john underwear, since nobody wears real clothes at this time of the pandemic, and said to me, the name of my character, "Hey, I'm building a lifelike dinosaur in my front yard because I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan and it brings me joy." And
Paris.
My wife and I, and this is him still talking, my wife and I got this idea last summer when we were traveling in Paris. And she said, "You know what? You never have time for your hobbies anymore. You should build a lifelike dinosaur in the backyard so that neighbors of ours, when they're on their canoes, can see it and can see how great of a person you are building these sorts of things."
Blues.
And so I kept rowing on my canoe and thought, wow, what an interesting neighbor I have. The next neighbor I came to had this very blue house, and he was outside playing a blue guitar, and he was playing blues music into the air, and it was unbelievable, some of the nicest blues music that I had ever heard. And I said, hey Alfred, I didn't know you played the blues like that." And Alfred said, "Yeah, man, I play it every day at 5 o'clock. I love playing the blues."
Rainbow.
And I thought, man, the blues, one of the greatest types of music to listen to. And right away he said, "Hey, look behind you." And I looked behind me, and the most beautiful rainbow back over the water had appeared, and the rain started falling. And I thought, oh, this kind of sucks because I'm in a canoe and it's raining, but I thought the rainbow's great. And so I looked at the rainbow and just thought, wow, what a beautiful time. I'm so glad that I was able to get out of the house and get onto this canoe.
And the end. Yes.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. It is excellent. So, and often as you get better at this, the word giver can throw more words at you, more interruptions. But I think, for educators, think about that in a classroom when a student asks a question that's completely off topic and not according to the lesson plan or where you wanted to go. How do you deal with that? I mean, teachers should be good improvisers. They should be able to take the question and even if you don't know what to do with the question at that moment, acknowledge the person that gave it or incorporate it in some way, right? They're curveballs.
That was fun.
Yeah.
But it also, when you would throw a word in, it was helpful because then it would give me like a something to shoot for, within the story, because
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully I helped you
yeah,
in
you
that
did.
way, so so I'm not there to just totally screw you up. I'm there
Right.
to also I found words. I was trying to think of things. I was also looking around I saw a dinosaur up there. I have
Okay.
my painting of Paris right here. So I used what was in my space that was not directly connected to the canoe trip
Uh-huh.
or quarantine blues, but still inspired you. You found a way to connect it. I mean, dinosaur? My
Right.
neighbor's building a dinosaur in his yard. I love it. I mean, it's visually so fun. It's like I can imagine you on a little canoe now,
Right.
going down your little, like in Venice in the canals, just there's my neighbor building it. Oh, there's my blue neighbor with everything blue, and then the rainbow behind us. Oh yeah, it is a beautiful day in spite of the fact that we're quarantined, right?
Yeah. And it
I
all
loved it.
came, thank you. And it all just, I mean, like you said, just from these random things that I probably would have never thought of,
Yeah.
but you throw them out. And,
Yeah.
well, and it's funny too, because I thought about it, the canoe. I have a kayak and I live fairly close to the water here. So I was thinking, you know,
Do it.
how do I get out if I got onto the water, and then if I could see, because I'm down in Newport Beach, if I could see people's backyards as I'm rowing. So,
Yeah.
that was fun.
See, I'm giving you an idea, a spontaneous idea for isolation.
That's great. Well, those were fun. Thank you very much for leading me through and for
Yeah.
showing, and hopefully people out there can, relate to how I was feeling, the like nervousness, fun, but then also at the end of it, seeing how it comes out. So
You're a creative artist. You're a musician. You do this all the time. You allow something to work through you, and
sure.
right. I mean,
Yep.
you're in that
Absolutely.
zone all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I for the rest of the segment, I had a couple of like one quick segment of some quick questions for you that would be kind of rapid fire for you to
Okay.
answer, called overrated or underrated, that I do a lot of with a lot of guests.
Okay.
And then a couple of just questions I ask every guest at the very end to finish.
All right.
So, overrated, underrated. One of my favorite things to play with the guests, and these have to.
Underrated.
I'm just going to give you. I'm going to throw out a term, and you can tell me. And if you think it's properly rated too, if you don't want to be potentially mean or something, you
Yeah.
can just say, "Oh, it's." But I'm a term, and then you tell me shortly whether you think this is overrated, underrated, or
Oh God.
properly rated. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, I think he's underrated.
Okay.
He's brilliant.
Um, Voodoo Donuts in Portland.
Overrated. They're
Okay.
good, but they're
They're,
overrated.
but they're good, but for the price and for the line, you got to stand in
Oh my gosh,
sometimes.
the line. Have you been?
I have. I have.
It's really fun. I mean,
It's
to
fun.
go at midnight.
Yes, but it's like it's right.
Yeah.
It's a novelty for sure.
Yeah.
Brazilian food.
I'm afraid I would say overrated because I'm a vegan and it's a real meat eating culture.
Mm,
But I have to say their beans and rice and their salsas and things like that, their buffet type vegetables, covey,
okay.
underrated. So
Okay.
both.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Um, Will Ferrell as an improviser.
I would think underrated because I don't think people think of him as an improviser, yet he was.
He
I
was,
mean, he
right? Yeah.
is.
Uh-huh.
So I think he's thought of as a comedic actor, but not and I think a lot of those comedic actors come from improvisation, and
Okay.
we don't get the credit we deserve for
Sure.
training
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
I mean, Will Ferrell is one of my favorite actors, but
I
I
love him.
I love his work with SNL and some of his earlier stuff where he is improvising a lot of what he's doing, and
Yeah,
I've heard him talk about that, and I think he came through, was it Groundlings or
Groundlings.
yeah,
Hmm.
in LA. So okay,
Yeah,
um, living in the Northwest.
I want to say overrated because I don't want anybody else to move up here. It's getting crowded, and
Right,
it is.
you love it.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful.
people that move up there that I know. I mean, my brother went to school in Salem at Willamette
Okay,
University. So
yeah.
been
I've
there?
taught there. I directed there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great school. Okay. We're rounding this out here, but Ryan Stiles from Whose Line Is It Anyway as a improv actor.
I I think he's underrated. I think those guys again, Whose Line doesn't really show their full range of talent.
Uh-huh.
And he's from up here in the Pacific Northwest and he has a
Okay.
theater company and he's a brilliant improviser. But I think Whose Line only shows sound bites.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Last one. Um, the process of writing a book. Overrated, underrated, love it, don't love it.
Of writing I think it's oh God, I don't know how to answer that. It's like I think it's underrated because people don't understand what really goes into it. The work, especially something like a critical biography that takes 5 years of
Yeah.
detailed research, like academic research. And it's overrated because everybody thinks they can do it. I think a lot of people think they can do it, but then they realize, oh, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I think both.
Okay. That's a good answer. It's not
Yeah. There's no
okay.
right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. All right. Thank you. You're off the hot seat for overrated, underrated. Last couple things I ask every guest these. But what's one of the best investments that you've made in your career? And you can take investment any way that you want. You know, I
I
won't.
I think um, being willing to, I mean, and you know this, I walked away from Chapman, right? I
Right.
walked away, being willing to walk away from something that you love in order to pursue your dreams. Because as soon as I made that decision, suddenly the doors opened. I was in China teaching. I was in London filming. I had a Fulbright in Brazil. So I think taking that risk without a safety net, to be investing in that theory that I can do that too, even as an academic who
Hmm.
loves academia, who loves teaching and educate, that I needed to take that leap, to become who I wanted to really become, and to become, to hone my skills in improvisation and applied improvisation.
That's great. Yeah. We didn't get into it a whole lot, but I mean, I'm sure that was a difficult, or I don't know if difficult is the right word, but an interesting decision
Yeah,
to leave Chapman and go on these other
I
things.
think all big risky decisions are difficult. They
Yeah.
should be, right? Career changes and choices, and if it doesn't make you sweat, maybe it's not worth considering. Yeah, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, last one. What brings you the most joy about the work that you do?
I think what you talked about earlier is having those students who come from engineering and math and social sciences and other fields who aren't in the theater, and suddenly pulling out their creative imagination, their the side of them that they didn't know they had, or they come in with that fear and anxiety,
Hmm.
um, and then suddenly they realize, oh yeah, I can do this. I am an imaginative being. I've been stifled by my education, my upbringing, my culture, something, and to get past that and reconnect with their child, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, Keith calls adults atrophied children, right? We're just trying to get back to that sense of play and beauty and imagination and real connection with other people. When they discover that, I often say that my students that come from other disciplines become the best improvisers
Mm.
because they don't have any preconceived notions about this work. They just come in wanting to improve their social skills or their presentation skills. And so I think for me that I'm able to affect them and influence them with the way I teach and with the tools that I have is so powerful and beautiful. And then to hear that feedback Like, especially, I love when students come back to me later and say, like you did, I used this with my basketball team. Oh my gosh, this was so wonderful, right? I used this concept, this theory, or I tried this with my children at home. I yes and everything they said, and suddenly I was able to communicate. So when I hear those success stories, not only in on the stage, but in everyday life and in work, that really, my heart. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing. And it certainly has been something that I've used all the time. The skills and stuff that I was able to practice and learn in your class. And so thank you for coming on and for being so open and sharing and trying stuff out on me and playing. This has been really, really fun. So I want to give you a few seconds here to let people know where they can find you online, the projects you have coming out, anything that you want. So the floor is yours for that.
Yeah, well, my website is theimprofessor.com. And our docuseries is on Keith, Artists Speak, on Johnstone and Impro. Please go there. There's something for everyone. Subscribe to our channel. We're launching another video, interview this Friday, but Jonathan Pryce, so much fun listening to him as an actor talk about his early days. And anyway, there's something for everyone there, and we would love your support on that. What else? I've got, my books. Buy them, enjoy them. Let me know how they help you in your world. Applied Improvisation, leading, collaborating and creating beyond the theater, and then my Johnstone biography. And then next year we're coming out with the Applied Improvisation Mindset, which will have case studies from a behavioral therapist working in Detroit with the Detroit Creativity Project, which was started by Keegan-Michael Key and people like that, writing about how they're using improvisation in the Detroit public school systems to take away anxiety and stress. We have a case study on improvisers in New York using improvisation with dementia patients.
Wow.
And their caretakers, leadership development, grassroots organization, community engagement. So the case studies, like in the first book, will be wonderful and rich and across the board, something for everyone. And really diving deeper into what is an improvisation mindset.
Okay.
How is that, how does that support the way we live and breathe and everything we do?
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. Best of luck with everything. It was great to see and have you on. And
thank you. It was great seeing you too. I can't wait for your music Friday night, your next at-home music session.
Thank you. It's keeping us, giving something to look forward to. So, well, thank you again.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the Beautiful Work Podcast. Please check out more about Theresa, all of her work, her writings, her videos, and much, much more at theimprofessor.com for all of Theresa's work. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to be listening. And until next time, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, keep making that beautiful work. We'll see you soon.